Hai, Assalamualaikum everyone. I hope semua orang masih lagi survive sebab kita nak cover Analysing Financing Activities under Chapter 3. This will be covered in your final assessment as part of your multiple choice question and also you punya test. Right, let's move on. Untuk Analysing Financing Activities, the topic objective are first one, debt financing, protections, capital stock, retained earnings, cash and stock dividend, spin-off and split-off, and the last one will be the accumulated other comprehensive income. So, untuk this analysing financing activities, dia akan keluar untuk you punya final exam dekat multiple choice question dan juga in your test. This is the debt financing. So if you can see, these are the capital structure of the company where it states how the asset is financed. So in here you can see that it is partly financed by equity and partly financed by debt. So kita akan focus this one, the debt financing. If you can see from here, the company's operation are financed by various sources. So first one, it can be liabilities. So kita akan tengok the definition, characteristic and also classification of these liabilities. And stockholders equity, which is kita akan tengok the basic characteristic, the elements and also spin off and split off. So kita tak akan cover this off balance sheet transactions. These are the definition of liability. A liability is a financial obligation of a company that results in future sacrifice of economic benefits to other entity or businesses. So this definition of liability, you're supposed to cover it masa you punya part 1 already. So dia adalah obligation yang menyebabkan kita kena sacrifice economic benefit untuk settle those obligation. These are the classification of liabilities. First one, you can see that here kita ada short term ataupun so-called current liabilities. So, the current liabilities adalah obligation yang settlement dia memerlukan you menggunakan current asset ataupun incur another current liability dalam masa 1 year, whichever is longer. So, what does it mean by settlement using current assets? So, if you have a liability, let's say you ada hutang dengan orang, you gunakan cash untuk bayarkan the liability, the hutang. So, you gunakan current asset. Ataupun, you can settle your debt. Or, you can settle your debt kalau you pergi berhutang pula dengan orang lain untuk bayar hutang. So, it's like gali lubang, tutup lubang lah, macam tu. Moving on, this is the non-current liabilities ataupun long-term liabilities, of which the obligation is not payable within 1 year. They're more than 1 year lah, like the long-term loan and all that. This is the liabilities alternative classification. You can also classify your liabilities based on first one, either it is operating liabilities which arise from operating activities like you punya account payable, unearned revenue, advance payment, tax, post-retirement liabilities and other accrual operating expenses which is all related to your punya operating activities. Next adalah you can classify based on the financing liability which arise from financing activities like the short and long-term debt, bonds, notes, lease, and the current portion of the long-term debt. These are the important features in analysing ability. First one, you boleh tengok in term of the indebtedness. Okay, bila maturity dia, berapa interest rate dia, macam mana payment pattern and also the amount. And then the restriction on deploying resources and pursuing business activities. Ability and flexibility in pursuing further financing. Okay, kalau dah ada liability tu, boleh tak dia nak incur another liability, get some more debt. Okay, and then the obligation for working capital, debt to equity and other financial figures. The dilutive conversion features that liabilities are subject to. Okay, some liability like debenture ataupun redeemable preference share, dia boleh convertkan menjadi common shares ataupun ordinary shares. So kita akan ada this dilutive conversion feature. And next adalah the prohibition on disbursement such as dividends. Okay, this is the debt financing, which refers to the fund borrowed from various providers of capital. So debt financing kita ada two types, which is first one adalah public debt and also private debt. Kalau public debt ni kita borrow from investor by issuing securities like bonds. Kalau private debt kita borrow from financial institution such as bank in form of loan. So biasanya this borrowing dia ada explicit borrowing cost ataupun kita panggil secara mudahnya interest. So the financial liabilities are also called interest bearing liability. So interest bearing ni yang akan distinguish them from operating liabilities like account payables. So if you notice untuk loans ataupun borrowings dia akan ada interest. Kalau account payable ni tak ada interest. So feature ni lah yang akan differentiate account payables dengan borrowings. Next adalah borrowing usually have fixed term and will mature, and at that time the principal must be paid. So bila you borrow money, you akan ada tempoh matang dan masa itulah you akan bayar dia punya principal. Along the way tu you kena bayar dah dia punya interest. Right, next adalah mengenai debt. Debt yang exceeding a year is called a long-term debt. So example of the long-term debt are bonds, debentures, notes issued to the public ataupun so-called public debt, and also term loan and long-term notes. This one adalah private debt. So debt ni ada yang short term, ada yang long term. Okay. So kenapa company borrow the money? Usually because they want to finance the long-term project ataupun to meet the sustained need for capital. So nak buat project in future tapi tak ada modal, pinjam debt. Long-term debt on SOFP adalah the non-current liability. Okay, yang ni memanglah sebab dia more than 1 year. So kena jadi non-current. Tetapi kalau ada portion yang long-term yang kita kena bayar dalam masa 1 year, kita akan classify dia sebagai current liability and it is called as current portion of the long-term debt. Okay. Next, kita nak discuss pasal the short-term debts. Company also borrow short-term debts. Kenapa? Because it is flexible and usually lower interest rather than the long-term debt. But the short-term debt adalah more riskier. Kenapa dia lebih risiko? Sebab repayment is needed in short term. You kena bayar dia dalam masa terdekat. Example of short-term debts are revolvers, discounted bills, and also commercial paper. So revolvers ni macam something like credit facility. Dia works like a credit card. You akan ada limit berapa banyak you boleh withdraw money from your bank. Discounted bills like selling promissory notes to bank for immediate cash. And also commercial paper issuing unsecured notes to the investor. These are all short-term debt. Macam mana company tu nak dapat duit dengan kadar segera. Next adalah short-term debt is usually used to finance working capital. Apa maksud finance working capital? If like you want the money to buy inventory ataupun settle the creditor and other liquidity needs lah. And of course, the short-term debt adalah classified as the current liability. Okay, kita nak cakap tentang protection. Usually protection ni involve apabila ada orang bagi you hutang. So the lender tu dia nak, right, bila wujudnya debt, so akan adalah the term protection. First one, what are the kind of protection? Dia ada 3 jenis. First one adalah the seniority. Seniority adalah the order of which different parties will be paid when the business is resolved. Okay, so macam mana cara pembayaran lender ni dia based on seniority. Next adalah collateral. Collateral adalah aset yang kita set aside during dissolution to specifically satisfy a particular claim. So a claim backed up by collateral is called secured. Collateral ni adalah cagaran. Okay, bila you nak pinjam duit, biasanya orang akan ada minta cagaran. So that adalah one of the protection. Next adalah covenant. Covenant adalah action taken by lenders to safeguard their investment, can be affirmative or negative. Kita akan tengok these three in details later. So you need to know that bila adanya hutang, bila kita pinjam duit daripada orang, dia mesti ada some protection from untuk protect lender lah daripada ketidakmampuan untuk bayar hutang tu. Masih lagi mengenai protection, in detail kita akan tengok mengenai seniority. So the senior claims will be paid before the junior claim. So cara pembayaran hutang tu oleh company kepada lender, dia akan based on seniority. Siapa yang lagi senior, dia akan bayar dulu. So the seniority ni of certain claim, sometimes it is predetermined by law. Contoh macam the government due, macam tax payable ataupun employee dues, unpaid salary, kita kena settle yang tu dulu sebelum kita handle claim orang lain. So dia lagi senior. And the equity holder can only be paid after the other claims has been fully paid. So common equity holder ni sebenarnya adalah the most junior of all claims. Next, masih mengenai protection, kita akan tengok in detail on collateral ataupun security. In the event of dissolution, the owner of this particular claim can sell their identified asset to satisfy their claim. So the asset offered as collateral is specified in the lending contract. For example, short-term finance such as short-term loans is backed up by current asset such as inventory. Okay, biasakan kita lihat dalam drama-drama Melayu, kalau nak pinjam duit kena ada cagaran, so dia pergi cagar rumah ataupun tanah bapak dia. So last-last dia jadi anak derhaka. So itulah collateral sebenarnya. Bila kita tak mampu bayar the hutang, so bank akan ada hak untuk sell the identified asset untuk get back their money. Okay. The last protection adalah covenant. So this covenant ada dua jenis, which is affirmative and also negative covenant. So kalau affirmative, dia akan specify action that management kena buat to keep the debt in good standing. For example, here, there are requirement for a company to file in the audited financial statement in accordance with GAAP within specified period, of which kalau kita gagal nak buat macam tu, dia akan bagi lender tu hak untuk minta bayaran balik segera. Okay, so company must make sure they file in the audited financial statement accordingly lah, supaya lender ni tak akan enforce dia punya hutang kembali. Okay, that is affirmative. Dia dah specify apa yang awak kena buat untuk keep the debt in good standing. The second covenant adalah negative covenant. It limit managerial behavior that might be harmful to lender. So dia ada two parts. First one adalah constraint, which dia specify when the company violate the covenant, and second one adalah penalties ataupun restriction that arise when the covenant being violated. So negative covenant ni dia akan specify apa yang management tu buat yang akan violate. Contoh kalau dia jual aset yang dalam cagaran tu, dia dah violate the governance. So bila dia violate the covenants, kita akan kenakan dia penalty. Macam itulah. Right, the next subtopic adalah capital stock, which is the shares that are issued to equity holders in return for assets and services. So capital stock ni dia ada dua. First one adalah the preferred stock ataupun preference shares. Second one adalah the common stock ataupun the common shares ataupun so-called ordinary shares. Preferred stock adalah special class of stock possessing the preference ataupun features yang tak enjoy by the common stockholders. So these are the features of preferred stock. Dividend distribution dia, including the participating and cumulative feature. Okay, I hope you still remember preference shares punya features. Dia ada certain percentage, right? So in dividend dia adalah fixed. Dan in liquidation dia ada priorities, dan some preference shares like redeemable preference share dia boleh convert into a common stock, dan dia tak ada voting right. Also dia ada call provision which protecting preference shareholders against the premature redemption. Common stock ni adalah the ordinary shares, which is a class of stock representing ownership interest and bearing the ultimate risk and rewards of the company's performance. Because common shareholder ni adalah owner of the company, so dia lah yang akan bear the most risk, and kalau company tu successful, dia yang akan get the most rewards from the company. The common stock represent residual interest by having no preference but only residual net income and also absorbing the net loss. Moving on reporting on capital stock. Macam mana kita nak report on this capital stock? Basically, reporting dia involve explanation of changes in the number of capital shares. So this information kita akan tunjuk dekat the financial statement ataupun the notes to the financial statements. So dekat sini adalah list untuk changes in capital stock according to the increases ataupun decreases. So first one, the source of increase in capital stock outstanding adalah issuance. Kalau kita issue new shares, so dia meningkatlah kita punya capital stock. Kalau kita convert the debenture and preferred stock to the common shares, pun dia akan meningkat juga the capital shares kita. Or issuance due to stock dividends and split. Sometimes bila kita bagi dividend, kita tak bagi dia cash only, kita bagi dia stock. So the shares of the capital stock ni dia akan increase lah. Ataupun share split, I hope you still remember, this is file 160. Share split, dia pecahkan shares tu kepada dua, so dia akan bertambah lah dia punya capital stock. Next adalah issuance due to acquisition and mergers. And the last one adalah issuance due to stock option and warrants exercise. Untuk option and warrants ni adalah financial derivative yang kita issue kepada holder, dan bila holder tu exercise dia punya right, dia mungkin boleh convert that option ataupun warrant kepada the ordinary shares. So in that sense, dia akan increase our capital stock outstanding lah. Next adalah the sources of decrease in capital stock. Macam mana pengurangan capital stock boleh berlaku? First one adalah bila you purchase ataupun retire some stock, you beli balik. Ataupun you beli dan you retire kan, you hapuskan stok tersebut. So you punya capital stock akan kurang lah dekat ni yang outstanding. Next adalah the stock buybacks and also the reverse stock split. Reverse stock split ni daripada dua share dia gabungkan. So it's a stock combination, akan mengecilkan lagi you punya number of capital shares. Right, this one is still on reporting on capital stock. This one adalah mengenai evaluation about capital stock that option held by others. Okay, option held by others, apabila dia exercise, dia akan menyebabkan number of shares outstanding increase. So, apa option yang orang lain ada ataupun holder tu pegang, yang bila dia exercise rights tu, dia akan menyebabkan penambahan dalam you punya capital stock. So first one adalah the conversion right for debentures. So the rights untuk convert. Bila debenture holder ataupun preference shareholder dia convert dia punya right, dia akan menjadi capital stock lah. Walaupun sekarang benda tu masih lagi dalam bentuk rights, dia belum exercise lagi. Next adalah sama juga warrants, stock option and also the commitment to issues such as merger agreement. So all these four adalah option. Masih lagi option. Dia belum lagi menjadi the actual shares. But kita kena tengok, kita kena evaluate kalau dia convert, kalau dia gunakan hak dia tu untuk convertkan these four menjadi shares, then what will happen to the ordinary shares? Right, moving on, kita akan tengok about the contributed capital, also known as paid-in capital. What is contributed capital is actually the total financing received from shareholders in return for the capital shares. So ada two parts untuk the contributed capital. First one adalah par value. The second one adalah the additional paid up capital. So the total of these two akan menjadi the amount paid by shareholder for financing business activities. Next, we want to look at treasury stock. So treasury stock ni akan mengurangkan you punya capital shares outstanding ataupun mengurangkan you punya shareholders equity. So this treasury stock also known as the buybacks. Apa maksud buyback? Bila company tu dia beli balik share tu selepas dia dah issue. So bila dia beli balik, dia akan reduce the assets and also the shareholders equity. And obviously this treasury stock adalah not an asset. In fact, dia adalah the contra equity account ataupun so-called negative equity. So kita akan keep the treasury stock at cost dan apabila kita nak present dalam SOFP, kita akan tolak, deduct the treasury stock cost from the shareholders equity. The next subtopic about capital stock adalah the analyzing capital stock. Usually this analysis on capital stock, kita akan fokus kepada the composition of the capital account and their applicable restriction. Okay, composition tu adalah penting sebab kita nak tahu apa perkara yang akan affect hak-hak common shareholder such as the rights, returns, risk and return of equity investor. So those things include the dividend participation rights, conversion right and other options which may dilute the common equity. Yang ni adalah option-option yang 4 tadi tu yang mungkin akan mengurangkan nilai common equity. The second last part of your chapter adalah the retained earnings. So everyone knows what retained earnings really is, right? It's the earned capital of the company. It reflects the accumulation of undistributed earnings of the company since its inception. What does it mean? It means that untung yang terkumpul sejak company itu ditubuhkan lah. So retained earning adalah the primary source of dividend distribution to the shareholders. Usually bila kita nak declare dividend, kita akan ambil duit daripada retained earnings because itu kita punya untung yang terkumpul. Dan dividend hanya boleh being declared out of profits. Next subtopic kita nak cover mengenai cash and stock dividend. The first one adalah cash dividend, which is the distribution of cash to the shareholder. Is the most common way of dividend. Once declared, it becomes the liability of the company. Next adalah the stock dividend, which is the distribution of company's own shares to the shareholder on a pro-rate basis. Alright, this one apabila company tu dia tak bayar dividend on cash, instead dia bagi share company dia kepada sebagai dividend kepada shareholder. It represent the permanent capitalization of earning. Apa maksud dia? Apabila you issue share menggunakan retained earnings, is actually transfer je. Dia macam you akan debit retained earning, you akan creditkan share capital. So capitalization of earning maksudnya you daripada sini ke sini capitalizekan you punya earnings. Next, the shareholder receive additional shares in return because if you can see from here, dia akan credit, so dia akan increase in share capital lah. And then the shares issued from retained earning represent the reallocation from retained earnings to capital account. This one reallocate. Right, kita move on kepada spin off and split off. What does it means? So spin off adalah the distribution of subsidiary stock to the shareholder as dividend. So this one, instead of kita bagi share company kita bagi share subsidiary company kita, sebagai dividend. Therefore, the investment in subsidiary is reduced, so does the retained earning. Okay, kita bagi share company subsidiary, bukan company main. Next adalah split offs. Split off adalah the exchange of subsidiary stock owned by the company for shares in the company owned by the shareholder. Okay, ini kita tukar. Kita tukar antara subsidiary punya stock yang kepunyaan company, kita tukar dengan share yang kepunyaan shareholder tu. Share in the company yang kepunyaan shareholder. So the assets or the investment in subsidiary are reduced. The stock received from shareholder is treated as treasury stock. Okay, so split off adalah kita bagi share dekat subsidiary tu, kita bagi kepada shareholder kita, kita tukar. Okay, share subsidiary kepada, kita tukar dengan share holding company. So bila bertukar ni, you akan jadikan share yang you dapat ni, because originally ni adalah shareholder punya, right? Share of holding company ni, you akan jadikan dia sebagai treasury stock. Okay, we have reached to the last slide untuk this chapter. Accumulated other comprehensive income ataupun OCI. So, apa yang ada dalam OCI, dia akan report the changes in carrying value of asset and liabilities, which is the unrealized gains or losses, which are not reported as part of net income because dia unrealized, so dia tak report lah sebagai net income. So, dekat mana nak report dia? Kita akan report dia dekat OCI. So, these are the some things yang you akan report dalam OCI, like this one, unrealized gains and loss from marketable securities classified as AFS. AFS adalah available for sale. Available for sale. And then the unrealized gains and loss on derivative that qualify for hedge accounting and also foreign exchange translation adjustment. So benda yang tak melibatkan duit keluar masuk secara real, dia akan report dekat OCI. And of course, practice makes perfect. So I need you to do these 3 questions untuk our tutorial. Okay, so the question would be this one, and also this one. Tapi soalan dia rasa dah tak banyak sebab kita dah cover banyak masa chapter 1 and 2, right? Yang accrual dengan introduction. So, it's just a little bit homework lah for you. Enjoy. Alright, so I thank you for listening and paying attention to this lecture because people often say that motivation doesn't last. Okay, well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. So motivation kita as a student or as a lecturer even, dia takkan last forever. So every day kita kena refresh what is our purpose of being here. Okay, apa tujuan kita berada kat sini? Apa tujuan kita susah payah nak ber-ODL di saat orang lain bergembira? So just think that in future, you akan get something out of your effort. Okay, so I hope you enjoy the lecture. I'll see you soon in our group discussion. Bye.